Hey people, I'm Janine and I'm 17. All my life, I've had only one person next to me who I knew would never abandon me. It was my mom. But recently, she kicked me out of our house, and it's been a month already since we talked to each other for the last time. My mother has always been a strict and domineering woman, and my dad has always tried to escape being part of the family. He earned money and thought that this was enough. It's no wonder that one day our family broke when Dad announced he had finally found his soulmate and just left us. Mom was devastated, of course, and Dad never showed up, saying he was too busy with his new life. I was 15 back then, and I blamed her for everything. And then I did the most stupid thing a teenager could ever do. I tried to protest by coloring my hair green, getting my first piercing. I did all the stuff that would totally annoy my mom. Then I started dating one boy who was older than me, and my mom was definitely not happy about that. She tried to ground me and lock me in my room, but I kept running away, not coming back until the morning. Yeah, it was pretty challenging for my mom to have a daughter like me. But you know what was strange? I never managed to actually irritate her. I mean, even though people in our small town were looking at me as if I was a freak or something, she was keeping a low profile and kept telling me that she loved me. But then, my relationship with that guy was over because I caught him with another girl. I cried for several days, and that just made me understand how painful it was for my mom when my dad left her. So my mom and I sort of became close again. One day she said we were going to have a special guest for dinner. It was her colleague, Tom. Honestly, I didn't like him from the minute I met him. He seemed a bit too sweet to me. And when I noticed how friendly my mom was to him, how she laughed at his totally unfunny jokes, and how he would touch her hand from time to time, I understood that there was something more than friendship between them. As soon as he left, I decided to talk to Mom about it. You see, I thought that things were moving too fast for her to get involved in another relationship. And to a certain extent, I didn't want him to hurt her. Well, I agree that I was a bit too dramatic about that. I even came up with her favorite argument, "What will people around you say?" thing. But she stayed really calm and said that since she had been so supportive of me as a teenager, she was expecting me to do the same when it came to her new relationship. Knowing her nature, I understood that she was going to do whatever she wanted. I thought at least I didn't have to socialize with that Tom guy all the time. But soon, my mom made another announcement. She said he was moving in with us. Not only did I now have to share my house and my life with that man, but my mom also said that with my bad behavior, it was obvious to her that I needed a strong male influence around me. It's no wonder that since then, my life has changed. Whenever I wanted to go out with my friends, it was Tom who asked me who I was going out with, what we were going to do, and when I would be back home. And he was always like, "How was your day?" and "What's new at school?" and would try to tell me some stupid stories from his childhood. This was pretty irritating and made me sick. One day my friend Angelica came to visit me at my place. We were in the kitchen when Tom unexpectedly returned from work a little bit earlier than he usually did. Even though he had already been living with us for a while, this was the first time he ever met somebody I was friends with. Tom decided not to bother us and went into the living room and turned on the TV, while Angelica got a very cunning look on her face. She told me an interesting story that earlier that day, she went to grab a coffee and saw Tom there flirting with a waitress. Only then she didn't know that it was him. Oh, I knew that something was wrong with that guy. I thought this story was worth mentioning to my mom, and later that day when the three of us were having dinner, we were discussing how our day was. And I decided to tell her what Angelica shared with me about Tom and that waitress. Of course, he at first tried to deny it, and then he pretended that he suddenly remembered that moment at the coffee shop and said that he wasn't flirting, but just trying to be nice with that girl. To me, his reaction resembled a really poor attempt at acting. Of course, I didn't expect that he'd say, "Yes, I was trying to find somebody to cheat with," but I thought I'd give sort of a hint to my mom to warn her that he wasn't an honest guy, but she didn't say a word about the flirting thing. It's totally true when people say that love is blind. The next week, another strange thing happened. I was home alone when somebody knocked on our door. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Daniels, an old lady. She asked me to remind my new stepdad that he promised to help her in her garage. Since Tom had left on a 2-day business trip that morning, I told her that I'd definitely tell him that she stopped by, but Mrs. Daniels seemed to be very surprised by that. It turned out that about an hour ago, she had seen his car near the pharmacy, and that's what made her decide to come and remind Tom of his promise. Aha! Now, this was finally something. Of course, I told Mom everything as soon as she came home. I thought that would finally make her become at least a little suspicious about her boyfriend. But I was wrong once again. She didn't seem to be worried at all, but actually pretty angry at me. Mom said that Mrs. Daniels must have been mistaken because she was already too old, and she might have just gotten confused. After that, I realized that I had to come up with something powerful to convince my mom that she was dating the wrong guy. And the idea came to me all of a sudden. Since I couldn't afford to hire a private detective or anything to catch Tom cheating, maybe I should trigger that situation myself. I created a fake account on Facebook, pretending that a nice young lady named Lisa wanted to socialize with Tom and so on. I uploaded several photos of this beautiful stranger, which were supposed to attract Tom's attention. My plan was to seduce him online and then arrange a meeting with him somewhere at a motel and sort of accidentally bring my mom there so she'd see his betrayal. At first, my plan worked perfectly. Every day during the whole week, we were texting back and forth some flirty and playful stuff, and some of his messages were pretty provocative and even made me blush. But once I had already decided to finally arrange that ill-fated meeting and to ask him to book a room at a motel, I screwed up really bad. One day, I was on my way home from school when Tom called me on my cell and said that he urgently needed to send an email for work, but his laptop had crashed, and he begged me to allow him to use my computer. But as soon as I hung up my cell, I remembered that I forgot to log out from the account from the fake Lisa. What if he saw it? Oh, I was never a good runner, but that day, I believe I could have won any running marathon. I was that fast. When I finally got home, Tom was still in my room as if he was purposely waiting for me. I knew what happened, and it was exactly what I was afraid of because that Facebook page with our correspondence was open on the screen. And right at that moment, I heard my mom coming in the house. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I rushed to my computer, hoping to be able to delete the page. Tom tried to stop me, and we sort of fell on my bed. And right at that moment, my mom, who had probably heard the noise we made, saw us. Of course, at first, she froze in complete bewilderment right in the doorway. But literally after a second, and I saw it in her eyes, she thought that Tom and I were going to have, well, you get it. And the expression on her face switched to a wave of complete anger. Of course, I tried to explain everything to her, and I was pointing at my computer, and Tom also tried to say something, but my mom, with all her high-handedness, as I mentioned already, just ignored us. You can be sure as soon as she read that correspondence, she understood what was happening there. She kicked Tom out of the house that second, and she refused to talk to me and just locked herself in her room. I was really sorry for her, and her behavior was totally understandable. But at the same time, I felt a sense of superiority that I had finally managed to do what I'd been striving to do for a long time. However, my happiness didn't last long. The next day, when I came back home from school, I practically fell over my suitcase. And then I saw my mom. She looked a little bit upset, but was still very calm. She said she was totally fed up with my eccentricity, and she just kicked me out of the house. Now, I'm living at Angelica's with no money and no other clothes apart from the ones my mom packed me. My dad also refused to have such a difficult teenager living with him and his new wife. I'm ready to beg Mom on my knees to forgive me, but she hasn't wanted to talk to me for a whole month now. I totally hate being a burden to my friend's family, so I guess it's time for me to find a job. That's it for that story. I'll be waiting for your thoughts and advice in the comments below this video. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. There are many other interesting stories waiting for you.